Greetings, traveler. You are listening to the Jaunty Mantis podcast, I believe, where we answer creative questions from curious gamers. I'm Jesse, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Matty. Say hello,
Hello.
And we are here in Season 4. Hey, Matty, what are we doing in Season 4?
Season 4, we are answering questions from the community.
All right. And our question today is, what's your favorite Christmas album?
Oh boy, it's so difficult to choose just one. But if I had to, I would go back to Mariah Carey. I mean, if I'm being honest, who's made some of the best Christmas music on the planet.
No, I legitimately have a respect for that song after listening to 60 Songs That Explain the 90s, the episode about that song. I'm like, okay. And that I think is a testament to Rob Harvilla that like I could listen to that and my pop music hating ass is like, wow, she's really talented.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Mine is John Denver and the Muppets, A Christmas Together,
Oh, wow.
which has the most depressing version of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, which I think is the most depressing Christmas song. And it's sung by Rolf the dog.
Oh,
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. Let
It kind
your
of-
heart be bright.
it's kind of scratching that Tom Waits itch you constantly have over there.
I heard an urban rumor that they got sued by Tom Waits. This cannot be true, but they got sued over Rolf by Tom Waits, which one, I cannot imagine Tom Waits suing a puppet.
Sure.
Like fucking a puppet, yes. Suing a puppet, no.
There is a clear distinction. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are two different actions.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And you don't want to break the action economy because this is a tabletop role-playing game podcast where the question we're actually answering tonight is, here in the season of Sam, another Sam question, how do you deal with players with different mechanical inclinations?
It's a
Which
great
means
question.
we get to talk about the least controversial topic in tabletop role-playing games,
Which is?
layer types.
Oh boy. There's so many. There's so many to
know.
choose from.
I did a little bit of a retrospective on it too. I went back through the DMGs of different versions to find out what the world's most popular role-playing game has done to talk about layer types. And it's kind of interesting. But before we get into that, what do you think are some of the worst slang terms in our community for player types?
It's just like, what, in general?
Yeah. What are some racial slurs that you're
Wow.
not fond of, Matt?
We went from puppet fucker to gamer slang.
Ironically,
real fast.
puppet fucker is on my list.
Can that be one of them?
Yeah.
Can that be the fourth Jaunty Mantis t-shirt?
We're going to talk about rules, lawyers, and puppet fuckers today on the Jaunty Mantis.
Do you think rules lawyer is the worst slang that we have? The worst slur, I mean, we have in our community?
No, I think Twinkie
What's a Twinkie?
or Twink.
What's a twink?
Oh, well, you see, in the club culture, no, a Twink power gamer. It's slang for power gamer.
I see.
Twink, Twinkie, big yellow school bus. I have no idea why.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, I guess I'm horribly out of date on gamer slurs.
Well, it was big in the early aughts.
Hmm. I mean, I remember twinking like in World of Warcraft back in the day where it's like,
Yeah, that's
if
where
you,
it came from.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you would level cap you would stop leveling your character at a certain point to fit in a bracket for battlegrounds. So the 10 to 19 battlegrounds, level 10 to 19, you would not level your character past 20, and you would have those levels, those 19 levels, to then try to go get the best possible gear for a 19th level character so that you could be like ridiculously overpowered. And it was
That
a
was the
beautiful
lazy
thing.
bracket to do that in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
I heard a story from Sci-Fi Mark. Sorry,
Mhm.
Mark, that's your name now on the show to distinguish you from other possible Marks.
Mhm.
You probably love it. I hope you love it. It's intended as a mark of respect. But he was talking about like being level 59 twink in the battlegrounds with warlord gear and
Oh,
just
wow.
just like high warlord whatever. And his server like was like so alliance dominant that like the allies, it was before cross realms, the
Uh-huh.
allies would be like waiting 30 minutes, and if you were a hoarder you could just get in a queue like that. So
Mm-hmm.
like they'd be waiting 30 minutes and suddenly this team of people in warlord gear as the horde would just appear and roll over them
Oh, wow.
in Warsong Gulch. And I was like, oh, I wish I could have been there.
Amazing.
Yep, yep. Okay, the episode topic.
Yes.
Twink comes from RPGs, gets into World of Warcraft. That might be our of the early aughts worst slur. Are there any really ones that you find really derogatory? People complain about rules lawyers, but I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't really think I can't imagine them being like, "You're a rules lawyer," and then me being like, "Fight me." So
Yeah, I can't really think of any that have really vexed me to the point where they stand out. I don't know. I mean, I know people hate story gamers.
just the people in the OSR.
Yeah. I mean, that's what this podcast primarily is about is story gaming, but I don't know. I don't think there's any slurs that have particularly vexed me to the point where I could remember them.
Okay. Well, before we get into our definition, then I have a little question for you on a historical perspective.
Okay.
Of all the previous editions of the Dungeon Master's Guide, which edition do you think first has information about player types?
That would be third edition 3.x Dungeon Master Guide 2.
I
Oh.
looked it up. It's not in DMG2.
Oh.
Yeah, it's the first instance of a Dungeon Master's Guide having player types is fourth edition DMG. It's not in
That's really
DMG2 for
weird.
3.5. It's not in 3.5 DMG. It's not in 3.0. I didn't get a chance to look at 2E.
Huh.
But I did find it in the fourth edition DMG that had the following types:
Mm.
actor, explorer, instigator, power gamer, slayer, storyteller, thinker, and watcher. So it's basically Buffy.
Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah.
Um, and then it skips a generation. It's not in the DMG for 2014 5e.
Okay.
And then it comes back in DMG 2024. But
Oh, so
this
this is a
time,
new generation then.
yeah, but they don't list it as player types. They list it as player interests, which I think is a really interesting turn.
Yeah.
So they're like, players are interested, might be interested in these following activities in D&D: acting, exploring, fighting, instigating,
Mm-hmm.
optimizing, problem solving, socializing, and storytelling.
Okay. I think that is a better way to put it. I think the fourth edition version that you're citing is problematic, especially for that edition, because that was an edition where everything had a type like that. Like in fourth edition, the character classes were like they had like there was a controller, you know. I think there was a slayer. I don't remember exactly, but the different classes had different role types because they were trying to make fourth edition more akin to World of Warcraft of all things.
Yeah.
And so I think, and then all the monsters had different types, which was very helpful in how to use them. But if you're just adding more types of everything, you know, then you're like, well, I'm a controller striker who's also a storyteller. Like it's just too much. It's supposed to
I will
be a
say the
simple thing.
minion monster type in 4E is like one of my favorite additions to D&D ever, and I'm really sad it didn't port unless you read the Angry DM.
Yeah.
Like it didn't port into 5E. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. It's interesting to me because as I was doing this historical like retrospective, I was also like looking at some of my other games. Like I pulled down my Rifts and my Rifts Adventures Guide, which is actually a pretty I don't know that I'd say it's great, but it's a pretty well thought out series of essays about running the game. But it
Mhm.
just has like review your player character's character sheets. It's like all the thought for the character it recommends when planning an adventure.
Right.
And then so it's still kind of like earlier DMGs 3.0, 3.5 had things that were just like, know your players, but it's like a paragraph. Like, remember that there's people playing your game, and then they move on to like other stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, Whereas like DMG 2024 is just like, hey, there's a number of like main activities that happen in this game that people might like. They're this.
Yeah.
You know, a person is into this when you see them doing this. Um, I think the best presentation of it is 4E that's actually like the actor does this. Here's how to engage the actor.
Hmm.
Because that part, it's just a description of behavior in 5e DMG 2024. 4e has description of behavior and how to engage them.
Right. Which is very helpful. But the problem I have, and maybe this was corrected for 5th edition 2024, but my problem with player types is that, in my opinion, it's very, 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 very rare when you have one player who just like perfectly fits into that type and only that type and only that type at all times over the course of your gaming career with them. You
I
know, like
100% agree.
Jesse's a perfect example of this. Jesse has almost all, if not all, of the things he mentioned. He is all of those things. Jesse loves combat. He loves power gaming. He loves getting the most out of the rules. He loves exploiting the rules variances that may be kind of in the gray area. He loves getting away with shit. And he loves story gaming. He loves acting. He loves all of these things. It's just, is everybody like Jesse? No, but all the players that I've had at my table, with the exception of maybe one or two, they all shift in and out of these like zones, is what I would call them.
Yeah.
Like even our current group, who is like my players for the 1 to 20 game are killing it in story and acting, role. I would call it role play or whatever, but like. But we need to get to combat. Like you can feel people itching for it. Like they want
Yeah.
like
No, we
the
like to
stuff on their
fight.
character sheet is for fighting. you know.
I made a
So
monk. I didn't make a monk for talking to people.
right, right.
I made it for hitting people with a shillelagh.
You made it for gymnasium jamboree style movement around an encounter,
Yeah,
punishing
I
punishing
saw a
your
cool
enemies.
TikTok, and then I think I took my kid to a trampoline park, and I was like, I've got a character.
Right on. Yeah. So that's my biggest problem with player types.
I think that works for like any like, and it's productive to have this because I think for our listeners out there, you should know that as we talk about this, we're going to talk about how to engage with the rules of a role playing game with people that might have one predominant type or might
Hmm.
have a couple of them. Please, with any discussion of the least controversial topic in role playing games, player types, remember that human beings are complicated and we contain multitudes. More than this crude matter we are. Beings of luminous energy are we. Uh,
Hmm.
and so while I probably in my head, I self-identify as actor the most, but in play, I'm probably more optimizer and rules lawyer,
Hmm.
like
Okay.
in how it comes out. So like, yeah, as we get into the actual meat of our discussion on this one, like how do you engage the people that might have these different interests? Remember, these are just pieces of advice that you can put into the whole picture of a complicated human being.
Right. Yes.
So our first one,
Hmm.
that way we're going to talk about it is the one that I think is the dirty word, though I know myself to be one, the power gamer.
Hmm. Power gamers are my favorite.
So power gamers, how do they engage with mechanics in your experience?
They fucking use them, man. Like power gamers study. They do their homework. That's one of the things I love most about them is I don't have to worry about a power gamer understanding the rules. They're going to read that shit. They're going to find those powers or feats or character class, subclass, whatever the fuck it is. They're going to find it and they're going to abuse the shit out of it. But they're going to know it, and they're going to know it's probably better than you, or at least if I'm in the GM's chair, they're going to know it better than me. And I know that some people kind of bristle at the idea of a power gamer, but I love it because if I need you to understand this game, power gamers are my guys. So
Yeah, if there's a way to break the action economy so the other players feel useless in combat, the power gamer is the one who's gonna find it.
yeah. And it also means that if I have a power gamer in the group or several, oof, God, that's a dream scenario right there. Then I can really ramp up the danger and difficulty of an encounter and not worry about how that's going to land on them. Because power gamers love a challenge, whether that's in the strategic aspect of it, like in group play, or whether it's the personal challenge that they put on themselves to play that broken character to its absolute worst or best, I guess, is how I should put it. So it's like if I've got at least a power gamer in the group, then I'm going to ramp the difficulty of my encounters up because that power gamer, she's going to love it, man. She's going to be like, yeah, bring it on. How many orcs did you say was in this room? Okay, I know everything I'm going to do. And then she's going to mop the floor with them and wipe them all out. So that gives me a lot of freedom when it comes to encounter design. So I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. Yeah. So that, I mean, you just mentioned what they need to be engaged, people with that mechanical, and they need clear, concise rules, and they need opportunities to win through knowing the rules really well.
Yeah.
This is going to be interesting because our next one.
Well, before we go on to the next one, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
The power gamer.
Yeah.
What if you're the GM and you want to integrate more story and role play and you don't want your power gamer to be bored? Is there a way to feed story and role play out of or to a power gamer to get a result? Or are they just kind of lost until initiative dice get rolled? What do you think?
Well, I mean, luckily, I think most power gamers, myself included, like other aspects of the game too. But I don't like if we're talking about within the narrow lens of our topic for today of engaging with mechanics, I don't think you can use the mechanics of the game necessarily to get the power gamer to engage more with the story. And that's based on a couple assumptions. The power gamer is also called the optimizer. The optimizer has probably optimized their character for combat.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Not for the other reasons you roll a dice. Like, I think with like 5e 2014, you could have optimized your character for exploration as a ranger, but then nobody ever really used.
What the fuck would you do that?
Like, you'd have to get the wilderness survival DM's guide to at least find a good system for wilderness exploration. And then I think only like, well, your favorite terrain is coasts. So we're a mile inland now. So none of your cool shit works anymore.
Yeah. But what if you were to give a power gamer, I don't know, I'm kind of coming up with this off the top of my head, but what if you were to give them like a cool thing? Like, what if you were to give a power gamer a cool sword, right? Something that could unlock power that, like, let's say you have studied their character and you're like, this item would be perfect for them. And you throw in a little bit of a story element to like work the details out. And you make the power gamer kind of role play just a little bit and interact with, let's say it's a sentient magic sword, right? And it does a cool thing, but in order to do the cool thing, the power gamer has to do it eensy weensy little bit of role play to activate. What do you think about that?
Give them a mechanical bonus, but in order to reach that optimization, they have to. I know just how to do that the moment you said that. Like, I was like, you steal the magic weapon system from Earth Dawn.
Oh, right.
Where like they get this magic item and they have to uncover the core knowledge of this was forged by this guy. And then
Mhm.
they have to go research and talk to a librarian at the great city to find out more about this guy. And that lets them unlock the next aspect of this weapon because, well,
Right.
they have to go find the wood that the handle was made from. Only grows in this grove. So that
Right.
like leads on to more adventure and you can keep stacking up. Or you could just
Yeah.
play Earth Dawn. Or you could play Exalted, where artifacts have a built-in like series of charms you can unlock in the current edition.
Yeah.
Um,
But
so,
Jesse, if you want clicks on YouTube, you got to play Dungeons and Dragons.
oh shit. Okay, so in Dungeons and Dragons, you could basically have them make a knowledge history check with advantage if they go to a library and give them a piece of lore if they
Hmm.
succeed, a DC, I don't know, 12 check. Talking
Hmm.
right to you, D&D players. And then you can give them the quest line that, you know, well, the only man who knows that was this sage who lived in this tower here. You better go talk to him. But it's through the mire of peril.
I love it. I love it.
Yep. Steal from Earth Dawn.
It's a good game.
I don't know that I'd say that. I've been reading fourth edition so
Really?
much, Earth Dawn, and I'm like the magic chapter. Like they really did you think Shadowrun magic was complicated?
I did.
This
Yeah.
is worse.
Okay. All right. Well, then I retract my statement.
No,
It seemed
I'm
like a
impressed.
good game. The very little amount of that I've looked into it and how much you've talked about, it, I'm like, this is sounds like a good game. I'm looking forward to playing it.
Setting wise, it's awesome. I still have some head wrappy around the very 90s rules that even in the fourth edition
I
from
see.
2018 are still very 90s rules. Okay, the next type. There's bleed from the last one. So we
Okay.
got to distinguish a little bit. Is the rules lawyer?
Okay.
So I think what distinguishes in our first one, the power gamer or the optimizer, they learn the rules, like you said, but they do that with the lens of making their character the best they can be within the confines of whatever they're saying best. The rules lawyer just wants all the rules applied with precision.
Yeah. Yeah. The rules lawyer is my arch nemesis because,
And also your best friend.
like you have to use the Batman and Joker kind of example here, right? Like Batman and Joker, arch nemesis of Batman, right? And they are both sides of the same coin. They're just headed in different directions. They're both kind of the same kind of crazy, just in different flavors. And that to me is what the rules lawyer is compared to the power gamer. Because yes, the rules lawyer they'll know all the rules. They'll read the book. Matt, that must be a good thing, right? Because that's what you like. You like it when your players understand the rules. Yeah, I do, but I fucking hate it when the flow of the game gets disrupted because I made a ruling, not a rule, in the spirit of the moment because my power gamer was doing something cool and I just wanted to let them do it. And then the rules lawyer stepped in and said, well, actually, that's not how it would work. They wouldn't get to do that. There's not enough actions, or they get a saving throw against so and so. And it was like, well, dude, that was 12 turns ago. Like, can we just let it go and move on? Like, don't make me apologize to the players for not allowing the full breadth of whatever rules system we are to shine in its infinite logical glory, please.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like none of them have infinite logical glory.
Yeah.
They weren't made by the Modrons, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I do like to think of myself though as a respectful rules lawyer. Like I
Okay.
don't do it only for my advantage, and I usually say, "Can I suggest something?" or wait to be asked. I don't
Hmm.
tend to try and override it, but like a mechanistic universe wherein the rules matter is important to me.
Yeah. And when Jesse, I mean, our game is over Zoom. And so when Jesse has a rules lawyer thing he wants to do, he will usually send it to me over chat privately first, which I very much appreciate. If you're going to be a rules lawyer, that's probably the best way to do it is to wait for after session or during a break or a private message.
Yes.
Text your GM and be like, hey, buddy, great game. Thank you so much for running this for us. I'm having a great time. I just wanted to let you know that the spell that this person used, actually, this would have happened. Up to you what you want to do with it. See you at the table.
Yeah. I just don't like people getting away with shit.
Yeah. Heart emoji, wink emoji, eggplant emoji. You're good, right?
Yeah. A little bit of the water drops too there at the
Yeah.
end. Just
Right. Is there a way, like, what we said with the first type, as far as like engaging the role play out of a power gamer? Is there a way we can engage opposite behavior out of a rules lawyer? And what would that look like?
I mean, I think one of the things that you want to do, and this is one of those ones where it's adult conversation. You don't necessarily have to worry about using mechanics to engage the rules lawyer. They're already engaged by the existence of mechanics. But
Yeah.
you do need to have an adult conversation with someone that has rules lawyer tendencies or derives a lot of pleasure from the game out of being rules lawyers, especially if it lends itself to disruptive negative aspect. I think you want to acknowledge their expertise. Hey,
Mhm.
you've definitely, I see you've spent some time with the player's handbook. It's really cool that you use that. But in future, when we're in the middle of a scene, can you just like text me the idea instead of like stopping it? Because like, like rule page 0, I do kind of get to overwrite any of them. Because you don't want to be in the situation where before game, as you drink your third nervous beer, waiting for your UN of D&D group to get over, you unbutton your shirt and write, because I'm the fucking DM, that's why. And then make
Right.
sure you're wearing a shirt you can rip off. So when it happens in the middle of your game session, in the middle of your 5th beer, you can stand up and rip your shirt open to reveal, because I'm the fucking DM, that's why.
Mhm.
Like you don't want to get to that point.
Right. Right. What do
Not
you
that I
think?
ever did that.
What do you think would happen if somebody actually did that, though?
What, like rip their shirt open?
Yeah,
Everybody would
because
have a
you
good
did.
laugh. I did it for jokes. So.
I know. My my subtle ploy to get you to admit further. Anyway, blah blah blah. Okay.
Oh, I
What
didn't.
about?
I just figured that was so oddly specific that all of our listeners would know that at one point while running a 4th edition game in China, I totally did that.
There you go. That's what I wanted you to say.
Okay. Okay.
Um, I want you to lead by example, Jesse. Okay. Well, what about this as an idea for a rules lawyer? What if you were to take an encounter and you are going to let's say you're going to break the rules on this, right? So in my instance, I'm going to assess a timer. And there's no rule about assessing a timer in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons 2024, at least none that I know of. I didn't read the goddamn books. So what if I were to say at the table, all right, guys, we're going to do something a little bit different for this encounter. Here's how this is going to work. And I'm going to need the following things. Jason, can you please look up for me, if you don't have it already memorized, the damage potential of this kind of effect? Like, let's say there's a falling aspect to it. I need to know how much damage everybody's going to take for this component. Like, you just start assigning
It's a
them.
D6 per 10 feet.
There you go. You just start assigning them tasks for the things that, when you plan on breaking the rules, you kind of like openly announce that that's going to happen and that it's going to be okay, I guess. I don't know.
Well, see, I mean, like, for the rules lawyer within myself, if you just tell me how the rules are different in a
Mhm.
clear way before we do it, I have zero problem with it because I understand the game.
So what you're saying is that rules lawyers are people too. They're not
Yes.
monsters.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you say so.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just be like if there was a video montage, it's just like Matty in a library looking up creepy woodcuts, and he's like, "Rules lawyers are real." Just
What's a
like Twilight.
library?
I don't. Yeah, good point. Okay, so yeah, acknowledge the rules lawyer's expertise, fill them in, make sure that the rules, if you're changing them, that it's clear that you're doing it, and then set some boundaries to avoid game delays. And then, like any of these things, if like it's not working, kick that person the fuck out of your group.
I thought you were going to say have an adult conversation.
Well, if the adult conversation doesn't work,
Mhm.
kick that person out of your group. Don't play with people that make you unhappy.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Someday I will follow that advice.
Yeah.
Someday.
I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I can.
Yeah. No, nobody in our group now makes me unhappy, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. So, okay. All right. The Mechanic Explorer,
Oh.
also known as the Tinkerer.
Oh. Okay. I don't know if I've ever heard of this one before.
This one, I think I've called this my game DHD.
Okay.
They love experimenting. I keep saying I for like all of these. This is
Yeah.
the truth. Yeah. They like experimenting with unusual builds, mechanics, or strategies.
Oh, okay. So I got some of this in my blood. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely
I'm
have
like,
some
what
of this.
is this thing in third
Like, I'm gonna
edition?
reinvent 3.5 again. You're like a meth addict with a bicycle wheel. Like, I can make it better.
What is this called? A true namer? It doesn't seem like this was well enough thought out. I want to play it.
Meanwhile, I did the shadow dude from the like combat book and made a brutal killing machine that you used as an NPC later to punish other people.
Yeah. And it made me feel better because I can play something, I can tinker with something and not worry about if I'm going to be dragging the group down because I know a power gamer. Yeah.
Yeah, the Tinkers, I gotta ask you. Like, I mean, I've had you as a tinker. With a tinker, I feel like for mechanics, you just say yes.
Yeah.
Because if the thing they made is unbalanced, they're gonna be bored of it in 2 weeks and on to the next thing. So like,
Yeah. I tinkered, I probably mentioned it before, so I'll try to be brief with the repeat here, but I tinkered with something in third edition that in the early levels of third edition D&D was just killing everything in combat to the point where I got super bored with it. You know, it might have been an optimizer's wet dream for all I know, right?
the
But
most
like,
orc of all orcs.
yeah, like it was disgusting. And I got real bored of it real fast, you know. And when the other players in the group were like, hey, would you consider playing something else? I was like, yes, no problem. Here's a useless bard I made.
Yeah, that's. I remember when you were obsessed with the pocket knife sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
like
Very
nothing but
useless.
utility spells on a sorcerer. Like,
Yeah.
we have to fight things. I cast jump. Okay.
I throw a rock at it because I ran out
um,
of my darts.
yeah, and again, this one, I think the mechanic explorer, the tinkerer, is like you don't have to worry about how they're going to engage with the mechanics. The mechanics are interesting to them. The
Right.
variety possible within the mechanics are interesting to them.
Right. Yeah.
So you
They're
just
going to
you
kind of
just
make
need to
their own
make
fun.
sure, like if I had to say advance is encourage their creativity, but make sure it doesn't disrupt game balance. But I also think game balance is a myth
Yeah.
because that is a stack of riffs books.
Right.
Like,
An imbalanced game is part of the fun if you really think about it. I think that was one of the issues with fourth edition is that it just felt so fucking restrained and homogenized,
it
you
was
know.
really samey. Even
Hmm.
when everybody got really powerful, it was really powerful samey.
Right. And that's the trade-off for making a more balanced system, or at least appears to be more balanced on the surface. I didn't play a ton of fourth edition, so maybe I'm wrong about that.
Okay. All right. We ready for our next type?
Yeah.
The filthy casual.
What?
I just wanted to say filthy casual because of,
Oh,
World of Warcraft. um,
right.
yeah, the casual player is probably never going to read the player's handbook.
Yeah.
They might look up their character class. They're not reading the combat chapter. They're probably going to want to focus on fun, story, social interaction. I think there's a couple different facets for the casual player. What was it I said earlier? Let me look back in the notes. Like 4E DMG probably called it the Watcher.
Okay. That's creepy.
Like they're just there for the social experience, to see what's
Yeah.
happening, to hang out.
I have had a lot of this type in my groups, and I absolutely love having them because this group, the casual, has it's a small They usually kind of peter out at some point. Very rarely does one of them actually become a full-time, whatever that is, like a full-time player. But they bring such a great element. Like they're just there for the social aspect of it because D&D and role-playing games is that's like one of the most social things you can do, sit around a table or on Zoom and just talk to people and play pretend. There's an aspect of vulnerability about it. There's some shared trust, there's a social contract. It's the perfect social activity. And your casuals love hanging out, making jokes, creating great moments with everybody. Remember that time when you tried to swing across on the chandelier and it all went to shit? Like they love that shit. So like they can be a great boost of energy to the party, but usually it's somebody's significant other who just got kind of game curious. And those are the most amount of casuals I've ever seen put into a role-playing game environment was either like a relationship partner of mine or somebody else's, and they just wanted to check it out. And that's probably where the watcher term came from. It's like, oh, it was a friend and they just wanted to sit and watch. But at my table, there's no watching. Like you either play or you're not here. That's the rule. Like I
Yeah.
think just watching is pointless. And in the age of Critical Role and actual plays, go watch them. Don't creepily just sit on the couch and be like, you guys should take the gold from the goblins. It's like, well, I have a character sheet for you right here, Jimmy. You want to play? Oh no, I'm just going to be on my phone over here. It's like, go fuck yourself, Jimmy. You know, get in the game. I don't know why you're here.
Yeah, and I think that the mechanics for the casual player are the barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
Because they know that there are mechanics of this thing and they think it's so complicated. So if you can take like the simplest version like of the mechanics and just say like, hey, you got this character sheet here. There's
Right.
a lot of numbers on it. At the end of the day,
Yeah.
when it's interesting to know if you succeed or fail, like for the story, like if there's some stakes, we might roll the dice to see what happens.
Right.
This is a 20-sided die. It looks like this, got 20 sides. This is the main one we roll. When you need to do that, we'll add something to it. I'll tell you where it is on your character sheet.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Try whatever makes sense in the story as we go along. When I ask
Right.
you what you want to do, don't worry about the numbers.
Right.
We'll fit the
Yeah.
numbers to what you want to do.
Yeah. Pre-made characters are your best friend for casuals. Like
Mm-hmm.
you put them down in front of them and you're like, okay, I got an elven fighter like Legolas from Lord of the Rings who shoots a bow. I've got a sorcerer. I've got a sneaky thief. I've got, like which one of these appeals to you? And they're like, that one. You're like, great, here you go. You know, and then just start asking them questions about just really simple questions about what their character looks like, some personality traits, really surface level stuff, and then be like, okay, now your character has a special item, something that's unique to them. Maybe somebody in their life gave them something. And I just want you to take like 5 minutes and think about what that is. Could be a locket, could be a key, could be anything. It doesn't really impact the game, but it's special to you for some reason. Go nuts. Right. And then that is their invitation to start getting involved in a way that doesn't have the mechanics at play. Right. And it kind of keeps them busy while everybody else is getting ready for today's session.
Yep. They're easy. I
Yeah.
mean, just don't overwhelm them. Like, just don't read the player's handbook to them. Don't explain how an entire combat turn works to them. Don't read like the Euro game instruction manual of like, before we start playing, these tokens represent this. And like, no, just okay, I'm gonna tell you situations happening. I'm gonna say at some point, what do you do? Do what you think makes sense with the story. Tell me that's what we're gonna do. If we got to roll for it, I'll tell you how that works.
And ask lots of questions if you have them.
Yeah. I will say too, that just reminded me in my research, as I was reading the Rift's Adventures guide, they had a section for like players' responsibilities or what good players do. And one of them was like, ask lots of questions.
Right.
Like their advice to players, ask lots of questions.
Yeah, ask. I mean, again, as a social activity, if you're like me and you have weird, social anxiety through some of your life that convinced you were an introvert, but you're actually an extrovert, and you had to figure that out, and then that was a whole weird, messy, awkward process of figuring out how to talk to people. The core of any social environment is just ask people questions. Like ask like genuinely authentic questions from people, and they will tell you all about themselves. And the same thing goes for D&D or any role-playing game. Ask lots of questions.
Mm-hmm. Recasting too.
Recasting. Okay, explain what recasting is.
Ask lots of questions?
Really? Huh.
No, you were saying ask lots of questions. So I'm just saying, like, ask lots of questions?
Yes,
Oh, that sounds like you like to do that.
I do.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
That's recasting. But you're shutting me down with my recasting.
I don't know what recasting is.
I saw some master class with a hostage negotiator. It's basically like when someone says something, you show you're interested by saying that thing back to them like it's a question.
Wow, really? Did I just shut down a hostage negotiator?
You did, but I'm not a professional.
Oh, you could have fooled me with
You could
your
have said, like, asking
library
a
of
question. I'm
gaming
like,
books.
yeah, you just raise your intonation and everything.
Oh, I see.
And then you model, or I forget what the term is, but you're like, that sounds challenging, or it sounds like you really enjoy that.
If you really want a challenge, especially as a GM, if you really want a social challenge to help you become a better GM, whenever you find yourself in a social situation where you're meeting new people,
Tell them
make it,
about D&D.
well, you could do that, but you could also uh, play a game where you are not allowed to ask people what they do for a living or what they do for a job. You are not allowed to ask that question. And you will see how much more interesting and difficult it is to start engaging people and how creative in the questioning you have to get in order to pull out the kind of material you're looking for. This is something that in a really weird way helped me level up as a GM. Is like when I forced myself to stop asking people, what do you do? What do you do for a job? What do you do for a living? You know, don't ask people about work. If they want to end up steering the conversation to work, that's totally fine. Then you can start asking questions about that. But find a way to engage people socially without asking them that basic ass question. And that does have the ability to translate then into your GMing style, because if that is a lesson on how to ask questions creatively, which can help you at the table when you need to like ask leading questions to get information out of your players.
Yep. Cool. I always like to ask, when you tell someone what you do, what are the three questions they always ask?
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Love it.
So, are we ready for our next type?
Oh, yeah.
We got 8 of these and we've done 4.
Oh, halfway through, bud.
All right. The narrative player, or the actor.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know any of these?
Do I? Well, my friend, there's a certain person who sits in your Zoom room who likes to do funny accents.
Which one of our players is that?
It's Patrick. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
He does do it, and he does it well too. He's extremely consistent.
So am I. I can't nail down the accent. I'm doing like Hobbit Shire stuff half the time, Irish half the time. It's been a struggle. I don't know why. So yes, character development is the primary focus of the storyteller.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily know that mechanics are the answer to what that player needs.
Yeah.
At least, like in Blades in the Dark, yes. In a Powered by the Apocalypse game, yes. Those games are designed for the storyteller.
Mhm.
But in the world's most popular role playing game that we'll talk about because one, we play it, and two, it gets the clicks on YouTube.
Sure does.
I just learned that from Matty earlier in this episode. You were here for that, audience.
It's almost like we have a special connection.
I know. I know.
So, how would you engage the actor at your table or over Zoom?
I think the Bastion system.
Oh, right. You've mentioned this before, but repeat it again. Refresh my memory.
Yeah, so DMG 5e has this kind of appendixy thing in the back about the Bastion system. Starting at level 5, you get to basically like a keep or a fortress or a thieves guild or a wizard's tower has been prepared for you. And as you level up, you get to manage your Bastion and add stuff, and it creates narrative story hooks for your characters based on this mechanical thing.
Right.
So, I mean that's an example of mechanics that are designed to generate character specific driven stories based on what's happening with your Bastion. And I
Okay.
keep meaning to sit down and read it, and I haven't got to read it yet. I have a lot of role playing game books
Yeah,
in my
and an infinite amount of time. So okay, so by creating some sort of architecture or investment system for them around a story element, is it them forming a thieves guild? Is it them, you know, prospecting land, or does it just provide it? Like I can kind of see both.
You get the starting point, and then you get to make decisions about the direction you take it as you expand it. So if
Hmm.
you're a rogue character, I think it could be like very much a thieves guild.
Okay.
What I think they tried to do is to have some mechanic narrative impulse. Do you know rules as written for how you gain inspiration in 2014? Uh,
No idea.
when you act in alignment with your ideal bond or flaw, you're supposed to get inspiration.
Wow. That's really boring.
Yeah, because everybody forgot what those things were like 2 minutes after they filled them out on their character sheet, if
Yeah.
they bothered.
If they bothered. I have read the character sheets for my player characters in my fifth edition Dungeons and Dragons group. I've read them many times at this point. I couldn't tell you what their flaws or bonds or whatever is.
Yeah.
I've looked at it. I couldn't tell you that, but I do know what my player characters are looking for based on how they created their characters and also what they've been doing at the table. And we both acknowledge that Pat is this actor player type for this example, although he fits into the other categories as well. But like the way that I like to engage Patrick in my games is to give him these like Russian nesting doll kind of things where it's like, like his character is a druid, and I'm like, okay, he's a druid. I'm gonna have this NPC walk into the room with an animal so that he will start talking to it. And then I'm going to give this animal personality, and it's going to start engaging with him directly as soon as the animal figures out that they can understand each other. So it's like I'm going to create a scenario in which this person can start bringing out the acting element, right? And it's like I love the idea of a bastion, but like I don't love the idea of like creating a keep or a thieves guild for every character who might fit into this, because that's immediately what my brain starts doing, even though it doesn't have to be for everybody, you
If
know.
I if I promise to walk it every day and take care of it myself like a big boy, when I get to level 5, can I have a bastion, please?
Of course you can.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the game.
Okay.
That's called DM magic.
Look at that. Look at that. What just happened? I asked for what I wanted and my DM responded.
Yeah, because why wouldn't I? Like, I know that you are also in that. You are all of these types. Jesse is like the Omni Man of. Well, no, not Omni Man. Not
We are Legion.
what Legion. It's on the tip of my tongue.
Multiple man?
Not multiple man. It's like a fucking New Gods DC, fucking New Genesis kind of thing or whatever. But like,
Neon Genesis Evangelion?
I'll come up with it later or never again. But Jesse is every one of these types, all concurrently, all manifesting and retracting at the same time. And when Jesse's actor part of his player brain is in full swing, he mentions back at the monastery for his monk, and Father so and so did this, and Brother so and so asked him to look into this. And what he's doing is he is basically giving me little seeds of how he wants the actor part to come out because his character is basically signaling what are the kind of things that he likes to talk about. So when he says, I want a bastion, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to put some element of your monastic order into this. And it's going to be his character's responsibility then to fix it up or discover it or rescue it from people who have taken it over or squatters or something, and then start a new wing of the order in that monastery in the game world, and then be responsible to it. Not there all the time, but somebody that the new order, this new wing of monks, can rely upon. So when he says, can I have a bastion if I promise to take care of it, the answer is yes. That's easy.
Thanks. I think, okay, our next type though.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that I think I have the least in.
Oh, okay.
Outside of combat. The
Okay.
problem solver.
Really? Okay. I'm surprised to hear that.
Using over mechanics to overcome challenges creatively and tactically. In combat, yes. With puzzles, no. This is a thing that I have learned about myself since the, basically proliferation of escape rooms.
Mm-hmm.
The
Okay.
first time I went to an escape room, I was like, I'm going to be so good at this. Like my interests, the kind of nerd I am, man, this is going to be so easy. And there's just too much stimulus everywhere. People are shouting. No one's taking time to get things together. And I'm like, I'm not good at this. And I'm just checking out.
Mm-hmm.
And so when there is a puzzle that I cannot solve with a die roll in a D&D game that is not movement or combat based, because strategy and combat and solving a puzzle or riddle are not the same thing in my mind.
Yeah, that it's using different parts of your brain, either of those things. So that makes complete sense to me.
But
You know,
and I will say this is not that I don't enjoy puzzles, because you put puzzles in games. Like it's not to say I don't enjoy them. It's just not the thing I'm super jazzed about.
right. But there's an easy fix for that, which is the system that I put into every puzzle, which because the worst thing in the world for me is if you put a riddle or a puzzle in your D&D game and then everybody in your group is looking at each other like, oh, fucking know this. Is it water? Is the answer water? Is it bread? You're like, no, it's not fucking water. No, it's not bread. And nobody's getting it. Uh, so I bake into, speaking of bread, I bake into the riddle or the problem the ability for people to start using mechanics, die rolls to help solve the problem. So if we go X number of rounds or X number of time without people solving it, then I have notes on my computer or next to my area on the table that will say, if they don't start getting this by this amount of time, ask Jesse's character to make a perception check and then give them this clue, this piece of information, or this other person. Because this might be Jesse's least category, but I personally have found that generally speaking, people like puzzles and riddles conceptually, but then when you're actually doing them, if they're not ridiculously easy, it can like kill the momentum of a game for a lot of people. And if you have that one person who really loves it, like that's the Decker moment from Shadowrun, where it's like now the game is all about them. You know what I mean? And everybody else is just kind of looking at their phones at that point.
I think they solved that in 5th edition.
Oh, we're
Like
talking
having
about
the wireless matrix turns be at the same time in the combat turn. So you're like shutting down someone's gun in combat by hacking their eyes. I don't know. It's cool stuff.
when you said fifth edition, you meant Shadowrun, not Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, sorry, 5th edition Shadowrun. 6th
Yeah.
edition, I haven't really wrapped my head around. Yeah, I think that there's different kinds of puzzles, and for me, as if you say strategist, yes, tactical strategic movement in combat is a thing that like I enjoy. Like, how do we solve this fighty challenge? But there's a level of abstraction on a puzzle that is, to me, like you said, it stops momentum. That's just my problem with it. Is like I'm fine with stopping momentum, but I don't want to take the time I need to deploy all the stuff I got in here to try and solve this because I know it's going to slow things down for everybody.
Gotcha.
So, yeah,
What's
I
the
don't know.
best thing a GM could do then for a player like you asking for a friend?
Oh, well, just let the other characters who are into that spotlight it. Like, let the character who wants to know whose thing is knowing things, Alexander, let him let him solve the puzzle, and I'm fine. I'll get to punch something later.
Okay, fair enough.
Turn taking. Okay. Um, all right. Problem solver strategist. Yeah, like you having multiple solutions, having a point at which they can engage a die roll when they get stuck, just planned ahead, can help people who do that. The problem solver isn't going to need help. They're going to be, fully on board. Uh, Here's another one that I don't know that I necessarily am, and I can't think of many people that are really in it. The immersionist.
Ooh. What's an immersionist? I don't know if I've ever, I think I know what you mean, but I don't know if I've ever encountered this before.
I think we also talk about this as like when the three types of player, like the simulationist, like
Okay.
they want it to simulate a real thing. And I think in my head, I think I might be an immersionist, but then I'm actually, when it gets down to it, like I can't play Dark Sun until I find a system that does dehydration right. But at the same time, I'm also not interested in tracking dehydration.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's another example of an immersionist then? Like I think I've never played with them, but I've known like ex-military guys who are into like very specific military culture, history, protocol, and that's an important part of their gaming experience. I once listened to a couple of guys who were ex-military talk about their role-playing game, and they had talked about like all the different things that was involved in the like the military formation in their D&D game. Essentially, I'm trying to be generous in the way that I describe this because this is like a mystery to me, but like they were very specific about like the certain details and the flow of the game and what their roles were. And it was the kind of game where they were like a military unit, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and so they all had their ranks and their roles and knew the protocol and then applied that. And they were describing it to me. And it was like somebody had opened my eyes to a style of game that I never knew existed before. And I think that's the closest I could get to imagining what an immersionist looks like,
I
with
mean, I
all
think
those
for an
details.
immersionist, you find out what they're interested in and then you tack on a subsystem. If we're talking about how to deal with mechanics, you tack on a subsystem that handles that thing they're into. So they
Okay.
have a mechanical way to get their immersive experience. But I feel like in general, if I had to say a broad trend, what has tabletop gaming been moving away from since the early 80s? It's simulationist games.
Yeah, that's a good point. So your simulationist, the way you're describing it is more like they want crunchy, rules for all of these little things that like me personally, I just hand wave it, you just get a thing of exhaustion. Like we don't need to go into, like you mentioned, dehydration. So that's what you're saying an immersionist is then? That like they want a character who can get exhausted and knows exactly how far they can jump and like is that what you're describing?
Yeah, well, I mean, they want like realistic consequences, immersive experiences, so it feels like it's real and it matters. And I think when we talk about that with mechanics, survival mechanics, starvation, hunger, tiredness, exhaustion are things that make it maybe more of an immersive in experience. You could probably also trigger an immersionist's like enjoyment of play if you had like a spray that smelled like the forest and you talk about walking through the forest and you're like spraying your spray bottle.
Right.
But yeah, I think when we talk about mechanics,
Okay.
it's people that may favor a more the immersionist is the person, simulationist is the style of game.
Okay. Let me ask you a question then. Let's say I know that my player is this immersionist type. And let's say that they're let's say they need to like hunt for food. They've run out of food, the group has. And this guy's character, let's just say it's a ranger for some reason, and they're gonna go hunt for food. would it be appropriate to say, like, hey, I'm going to have you make a survival check? The DC is going to start out pretty high. And I want you to describe all of the details and things your character is doing to prepare. And for if you give me enough additional prep or enough additional details about how you're going to go about this, I have no problem lowering this DC. In fact, I'd like to do that. So what are three things that your character does to prepare for this hunt?
Ooh,
You
I
know,
like this challenge.
and then I imagine they would go, well, I set up a blind or whatever the fuck that is, or spread some deer piss, or climb up in a tree and like I don't know hunting. I apologize. Maybe this is a bad example, but then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lower the DC by two or three numbers, two or three ranks, because of the way that you described that. Would that be an adequate way to like give an immersionist what they're looking for, at least in that very specific example?
Yeah, I think tying the DC, the die roll, that's the mechanic, to describing things in a way that reminds them of the immersive experience they're into is, yeah, that's definitely a great way to do it, rather than writing an entirely new subsystem for a role-playing game or stealing it from another one to put in.
Okay. I mean, I think if you know of a subsystem from a game, I think that's the easiest way to do it, because why do extra work, you know?
Yeah, I think like this, well, I've talked about it so much on the show, like the scarcity die is the sweet spot for my immersionist. Like it matters what's
Mm-hmm.
in your inventory, but you don't have to spend a tedious amount of time tracking it. But
Right.
it's going away. You have a pretty clear indication it's going away and it's going to reach a dire point because, like that's cool. Speaking of which, oh, I don't know if I want to go. I'm going to go into this now anyway because it's my podcast and I can.
Do it.
So I've been reading a whole bunch of Savage Riffs.
Okay.
You know how juicers work? Did I tell you this
You did,
yesterday?
but repeat it for the audience.
Okay. So juicers and riffs. We had this great discussion when we did our first riffs game. Matt wanted to be a juicer, and the thing he brought up is like, it's not like we're playing for 6 years of campaign time. There's zero stakes for this. I'm gonna die from the drugs that made me a super soldier in 6 years. I'm like, okay, cool. So Savage World riffs gives you a burn rating starting at 8 points of burn. And then anytime you're doing something with agility or strength or physical, you can just take your burn die and just add it into your pool to just have more dice to roll. Cool. Extra die. Get that higher target number and you roll it. If your burn die comes up as a 1, you reduce your number of burn points. So it becomes 7 and then 6 and then 5. And then when it hits 0, your character, you die. The drugs have taken their toll, you
Yeah.
die. And as that descends, the die you roll increases. So it starts as a D6 and then becomes a D8 and then a D10 and then a D12.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end, near the end of your character's life, you can do amazing, like superhuman physical feats of agility or strength. But at any given time, like your body could just start shutting down. And I'm like, that's an immersionist experience that's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah, and the increasing die is an elegant solution to an obvious problem with doing this. Because if the higher your burn is compared to a lower amount, you're going to be more eager to use that. So as your burn is starting to go down, is as you get closer to the 0, you're going to start to be very like cautious about using it. So increasing that die, like you said, from D6 to D8, D10, D12,
it reduces the chance you roll a 1.
right? And that's what stood out to me when you told me about this the first time. I'm like, that is a very elegant solution to keep the player interested and still using the burn, because as you pointed out, thematically it doesn't really make sense with how we think of a juicer character. Like the higher risk, closer to death, fire it up, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like that is what makes, but from a playing a game perspective, you're adding a great incentivization tool to the player to keep burning,
Yeah, it's a
basically.
D12 now. What could go wrong? I got a 1 in 12 chance to lose. Oh, one.
Oh shit.
Shit. And then there's a Blaze of Glory rule that's like just baked into Savage Rifts. When your character gets killed, you can go out in a Blaze of Glory. You get like 3 bennies to spend, and then you're just like, I'm gonna go for it, but you're dead at the end of this scene. Like,
Yeah, that's
which is
awesome.
that's cool. Okay, that's the immersionist,
Uh-huh.
the person that would play the juicer in Savage Rifts. We're at our last one. We
Whoa.
made it. The social player.
Mm-hmm. Okay. This isn't the casual?
No,
Okay,
no.
what's the difference? I'm curious.
They instead of engaging with mechanics, they
Mm-hmm.
focus on interaction and fun.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just there for a good time. Um, they want the social experience, whether that's talking to NPCs or people at the table.
Okay. That sounds like a lot of fun to me.
Yeah,
What do you mean? What did
but
you mean when you said they're not just there for the fun?
like the casual is like, I don't necessarily care about the story. I'm just here for this kind of
Oh,
group experience. The
yeah.
social player, like, this is what the group's doing. I'm here to hang out. It's fine. I'll play the game. I might even learn some mechanics. The social player is like, I don't give a shit about the dice. I just want to talk to people, whether
Mm-hmm.
that's NPC. Like, this is the person that might, I mean, the stereotype is like they're playing the bard and trying to romance every character. Like, can I romance the dragon? No, you can't fucking romance a dragon. Like, you
You can
busted into
try.
his lair to steal treasure, people. He's not like, oh, well, you, an entirely different species of disgustingly warm blooded creature. Gosh, you sure do have a well-defined pectoral muscle. So I guess I'm not going to kill you for this gross intrusion of my personal space and direct challenge to my draconic greed. I'm just going to sleep with you. Yeah, roll your fucking persuasion die. Lame breath, motherfuckers. Okay,
Uh,
sorry.
okay. I dig it.
I don't know where
You
that came from. I need to get back in therapy.
know, you know what's annoying about this type of player is that all of their fucking characters are social characters. And a lot of the times, I don't mean to do a stereotype here,
Ow,
but
knives out, man.
I'm gonna kind of stereotype this one. A lot of the times these people, this player type, uh, the problem that I have found with social player types as you've described them is that a lot of the times every single one of their characters have to have this quality, even if the mechanics and the dice and the ability scores don't actually represent that. And because they are a naturally social person themselves, they will exude that charm even if they're playing Joe Fighter with like 7 charisma, right? Like they shouldn't be able to get away with what they're doing, but because the person behind the character can do it, they tend to kind of like get their way in that regard. A lot of the times you may even have a group of players who are less likely to jump into the spotlight, and this person will do that even with their 7 charisma character, and they'll be like bringing up all sorts of social shit to get past this guard or whatever the case may be. And you kind of have to be like, well, look, for Bromf, your fighter with your 7 charisma, everything you just said sounds great in your head. But when you said it out loud, it sounded like, I like tigers. That's how you have to handle it. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
annoying in that regard.
it's so weird because of the social aspect of the game. They try and put mechanics on it. It's just like if I was actually physically strong and knew how to swing a sword, it would make no fucking difference in a D&D game. But if
Yeah,
I know how to make eye contact with someone and smile while I'm talking to them, it does make a difference in a D&D
right.
game.
But
So yeah,
we know, go ahead.
the social player can kind of overpower the mechanics and bypass them because they found it works, Like
Yeah,
I try and check myself because I can be this person, but
you can be this person. And, but you and I know of a way to handle this. Do you remember what that is?
Maybe no.
So for a social encounter, we brought it up in a past episode. For a social encounter, make it about getting pieces of information instead of like they're just charming the pants off of the person and then they get whatever they want. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like make them work for it. Like don't make it so that they're socially so charming that the guard is like they're like, "Okay, so how about you let me pass right now?" And the guard should then look at them straight in the eye and be like, "Hey man, I really like you. You're a lot of fun. But there's no fucking way I'm letting you pass right now."
Yeah.
You know
Being
what I mean?
charming is not mind control.
Right. That's what you kind of have to remember. So if they're going to be charming, allow them to kind of maybe get information that they have to then creatively use in order to get past the guard, you know? That's, like maybe you somehow got them to start talking about something that you would blackmail them with, or that, you found out something that they really want. And you're like, well, hey, what if I were able to get you that pony? Would we be able to get past you if I got you that pony? And they'd be like, oh, maybe I'd really like that pony, you
Yeah.
know?
I think that's one of the things that I forget which game system because I've read so many damn game systems, but there's one that in their social thing, it's just like, what's your leverage?
Yeah.
Like, if you're asking someone who is not inclined to do something for you, what is your leverage?
Right.
What do you have for them or on them or over them that's going to make them do this thing that they are not inclined to do? I think
Right.
even like if you actually read the social rules for when you roll dice out or get dice out in like say 2024 20 D&D 5e, like there's some cool stuff in there now. It's just like the DC of the roll is their intelligence.
Okay.
Like, and that is just to change their attitude, right?
Right.
You
Yes.
try and talk to them. What are you doing to change their attitude? Okay, you can try to do that and you try and change their attitude. And then once you get their attitude to where you want it to be, then you can ask them for something. And then the DM just decides, like based on what their attitude is now. But the actual mechanics of a social interaction is shifting someone's attitude more in your favor. Maybe
Yeah.
they start indifferent and you can get them friendly. And if
Yeah.
they're friendly, they're likely to do something for you that's a minor inconvenience. But in no case for the guard is letting a stranger without clearance pass anything but a career ending like
Right.
fuck up. So the leverage is we have your kid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and
I
then the
can't
guard's like, I have a special set of skills.
I can't tell you how many this has happened so often where it's like you have that social character who's doing really well. Like let's continue the guard example. They're doing really well with the guard. They are being very charming. It's working. And they're like, "Okay, so how about you let us get past you?" And the guard's like, "Look, man, I really like you, but I can't let you do that. I'm going to lose my job." And they're like, "No, but that would make me very upset." Like, I thought we were friends now. I fucking hate that response at all times. It's like, I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I don't care. Like, you may have improved my attitude, but it's not fucking magic. Like, unless you're casting Charm Person or something. I don't know. But like, I
Well,
can't
and
fucking
then they're
stand
still
it.
just friendly.
Yeah.
Like if you
And
do rules as written, even charm person is like they're still just they become friendly towards you, and that means they'll do something that's like a minor inconvenience for you.
yeah.
But
What would they do then, right? Like if they wanted to get past the guard and they improved the attitude so much.
so I'd say if you improve the attitude so much that the guy's like friendly or helpful, I forget what the categories are,
Yeah.
and then they're just like, would you let us pass? You still haven't applied any leverage.
Yes. What I what about this?
Like if they offered a bribe, like
Well, yeah,
I mean,
I mean, but
because if
then
you
you
think
have
like
something.
as I'm breaking this down, like trying to solve this issue from the PC's point of view, just like a guard is probably paid like something like 5 copper a day,
Yeah.
so you're just like, hey man, I'll tell you what, like I'm not like if you can just be like we're friends, Here's 5 gold. Go down to the guard bar.
Hmm.
You got
Hmm.
relieved. Like, buy yourself around. Like, you were never here. We never talked. I don't want to get you in trouble. But, if so,
Yeah.
here's a little something extra. So, like, if this blows up, you can write it out. We're buds. Could you help us out like that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure. Leverage. Here's some gold.
That is a very good solution. I would also suggest, if for some reason the player characters aren't going to give them gold, because that's happened, or let's say that honestly wouldn't work because of whatever it is in your game. If they were like, "Hey, we're good friends now, right? Yeah, sure, yeah. Okay, well, you going to let us pass?" It's like, I can't let you pass. This job is really important to me, or I'm going to get killed or whatever. But I'll tell you what, why don't you come back here at like 2 in the morning and talk to Shifty Steve? He has guard duty in the middle of the night. It's the worst shift. He gets in trouble all the time. He's really disenfranchised and pissed at the commander. And you know what? He would probably let you free or let you through here.
Yeah,
But
that's a great one from a DM perspective, too.
like, and I'm just letting you know this. And that way, like, I don't have to get in trouble for it. Don't mention that I told you to talk to him. Keep me out of it because we're good friends. I can't let you through right now, but this other person will, and then they show up and Shifty Steve is like drunk and he's untrustworthy and they're making a gamble at like him letting them pass. They're like, "Hey, I heard you were the guy to let us through." And he's like, "Yeah, fuck the police," or whatever. I don't know. And he's like, "Oh, Steve, you are the police." You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know where I was going with this. I apologize. You know, but that like that's a way to handle it. Like, just because you have a great relationship or attitude progression doesn't mean that that person just then has to hand the world over to you.
And I think a clear explanation of the mechanics of how, like, this is how like, this is how your character's charm works in the rules.
Yeah.
Like, that explanation. So you can do it. I'll give you advantage on the check if you do some good role playing,
Yeah.
but there are limitations.
Yeah. Advantage is like your best fucking friend, man. I don't use it
Hmm.
enough. I just like, you could just be like, "All right, talk this up." I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to let you roll this. I'll give you advantage if you can really sell this to me. So I want to hear something good. What do you got?" You know what I mean? I need to do this more.
Yeah, I'm hoping that when I do eventually run Savage Rifts, the Benny's mechanic will be a good trainer for giving out advantage to
The
remind me.
the problem with bennies is that players tend to hoard them, you
Well,
know.
they go away at the end of the session, so
Oh, okay, then I'm thinking of something else because that's a great solution
no,
to make
previous
sure
editions
that
I
people
think they
use them.
stuck around, but Savage World Adventures edition, like they're gone at the end of the session. We'll start over with new Bennies, so you fucking use them.
That's fucking awesome.
Okay. Cool. Well, we made it. So those are some different player types.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, if we had to do some summary takeaways, it's
Mhm.
remember that you are, basically GMing for complicated players and they're going to have different interests. A good GM is going to identify those interests and what basically gives people that serotonin rush or dopamine hit from playing D&D and then lean into it. And for a lot of these, the rules can be a way to lean into it. For others, the rules can be an obstacle, but you can find your way around it, as we have discussed. And you're going to have all different types and groups. So make sure you're providing a variety of
Mhm.
solutions. Any other thoughts or takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, you might have already mentioned this, you might have just mentioned it, but I want to make sure we drive the point home of uh you know, play to the strengths of the type. If a person is exhibiting a strong element of the type, whether that's the actor or the immersionist or the power gamer, like, don't be afraid to play that to that type because the player will appreciate that, and it'll make your game better. Create opportunities that play to those strengths specifically, and you'll be a better GM for it.
Yep. All right, I got a lightning round for you.
Oh, okay. Let's do it.
So, shout out to another podcast I listen to called System Mastery, where they review RPGs. They were reviewing one on the episode I was listening to today called Fastlane. Do you know what the conflict resolution system for Fastlane is?
No idea.
A roulette wheel and betting table.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So you have to play this RPG, you have to basically play roulette.
Okay.
And the GM is called the croupier. So we've got roulette wheel, we've got polyhedral die, and we've got Jenga towers. For lightning round, worse objects or things to use for conflict resolution. I'm going to start.
Okay.
Okay. 2 pounds of ground beef, a skillet, and a meat thermometer.
Wow, I think you win. I was going to take this seriously, and then you just said ground beef.
And a meat thermometer.
Sorry, and a meat thermometer.
And a skillet. And you got to have a hot plate. Like,
oh, wow. Okay. Well, you win. I can't beat that.
there has to be some variable. Like, right?
I was just going to say something boring like flipping a coin.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. Playing cards. I've done that before. Like,
Okay.
the value of the playing cards, are comparable to die rolls, or at least, or maybe even they have their own system. Like face cards have more power, or to produce special effects. Maybe it's a matter of consistency and how many cards you have. I'm not sure, but maybe playing cards.
Okay. A small black and white television, a Betamax VCR player, and the tracking setting.
Okay. Yes.
Bonus points if you can no longer obtain these things.
All right. Yeah. I do not have anything quite as ridiculous as the two that you've mentioned. I'm really at a loss here.
A 50-foot lawn space, a copy of the Farmer's Almanac, and a set of darts.
Okay. A children's petting zoo is the best I got.
Okay. Okay.
Wow, I really regret saying that. I'm going to edit that out.
Why?
I'm going to keep
It's a zoo where like children pet animals, right? Not okay.
No, children are the animals at the petting zoo.
No,
A children's
horrific.
petting
Yeah,
zoo.
edit that out. That's not good. Well, we hit a wall there because I swung too hard on the beginning of the lightning round. So
I think I kind of ran out of steam here.
it's fun. It's very late.
I would apologize, but you're listening to this for free, so
Yeah.
you're welcome.
If you want to tell us that we're good boys who did a good job, you can reach out to us at jauntymantis@gmail.com. I am considering setting up a Blue Sky for us. Do not tweet at us. I'm going to cancel it. Like,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
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 You know, I've been putting YouTube videos out there.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
done 5 so far, and I've been putting our social media on the videos
Oh, shit.
in little boxes. So,
Well, can those be edited?
no, they're done. They're out there. I can
Okay.
stop putting it out there if you want.
Well, I'll leave it. I don't know that.
It isn't
ethically I'm
anything you haven't
comfortable
already
with us.
mentioned on the show. In the episode in which I put them on there, you say your social media in the episode that I have it on there for.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say is this is all your fault.
I'm sorry. I just I didn't expect a fucking maniac to buy Twitter and then to do horrific things that made me feel really ethically complicated about supporting any
Well,
venture
then just
he's
make a
involved in.
Blue Sky account of Jingoist Fat and you're good.
I already did.
Well, then people, it doesn't say Jesse's Twitter. It just says @Jingoist Fat.
Okay, on Blue Sky.
Well, there you go.
Solved.
Yeah.
But yeah, email us if you want us to get a hold of you because I don't check socials often because I'm old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had to completely walk back my fucking position on social media because I put myself through a career change and now social media matters. So like many things in Matty's life, fifth edition, like I have to walk back what I said before. And it's, I don't know. I mean, I still think social media is ridiculous and it's something that the human race will look back on and be like, what are we thinking? But for right now, I'm on social media as well as I'll put it on the screen.
Okay. Well, just remember, like Elmo or like Daniel Tiger says, you can be more than one thing.
Oh, okay.
We're complicated.
Yes. This is the second time you have brought up the wisdom of Mr. Tiger. We're not on first name basis, so I can't call him Daniel.
You'll get a lot of it. He's a child. You can call him Daniel. It's okay.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
You're gonna get a lot of it real soon. So,
okay.
Because I'm gonna send you a whole bunch of Daniel Tiger clips.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
And after you watch those, get out there and play some fucking role-playing games or something.
Yeah, keep playing those fucking role-playing games or some shit.
Here I go playing role-playing games again. I just can't stop playing role-playing games.